Welcome to the Div and our series on professional expectations. I'm Lieutenant Navy Alex Wood from 4th Canadian Division Public Affairs in Toronto, Ontario. As members of the profession of arms, we are held to high standards and are expected to uphold the values of the Canadian Armed Forces. Our 8 professional expectations are provided through the Canadian Armed Forces ethos, trusted to serve. Our topic today is fighting spirit, and joining me are Warrant Officer Matthew McDonald and Sergeant Jasmine Bicella. Warrant Officer Matthew McDonald is in the role of G3 courses for 32 Canadian Brigade Group Headquarters. Warrant Officer McDonald is the company Sergeant's Major of the Grenadier Company with the Royal Regiment of Canada. Joining the Canadian Armed Forces in May 1997, he was then deployed in 2001 on Operation Palladium with 3rd Battalion Royal Canadian Regiment Parachute Company to the former Yugoslavia. He deployed on Operation Laser in 2020, the response to COVID-19 in the long-term care facilities in Ontario, as the lead platoon 2IC in the Domestic Response Company. Jasmine Bicella is a sergeant in the artillery trade. Sergeant Bicella is currently the assistant to the 4th Canadian Division Sergeant Major, and she joined in 2008 as a reservist. In the past, she was the command post supervisor and gun detachment commander at 7th Toronto Regiment, Royal Canadian Artillery. Welcome to the Div, and welcome to this series. Appreciate you both being here today.
Thank you.
So, you know, I'd like to always introduce the audience to our guests and find out a little bit about each of you. So I'll start with you, Matthew. First off, so I mentioned there the G3 courses at the 32 CBG headquarters. What exactly is your role there?
So pretty much any courses that candidates would like to be nominated for, my job is to seek out positions on the course and then source them through their units. And then that way we can course load them. If there's any course that's running within the brigade, same thing at the end of it. Once they've completed the course, I then have to enter a certain code and then actually grant them a competency or a qualification. So that way they're now qualified in that role.
Right on. And for you, Jasmine, currently the assistant to the Division Sergeant Major, Chief Warrant Officer Lehman. What is your role there in that capacity?
Right. I'm available for anything he needs. I manage the calendar, emails, make sure that he's on top of things and on top of his schedule.
So you're kind of the taskmaster for the Div Sergeant Major in a sense.
You could say that I manage him.
All right. So let me ask each of you, starting with you, Jasmine, why did you decide to join the military in the first place?
I decided to join the military because I knew that it was big on personal fitness and, fighting for our country. I had a friend whose dad was in the military, and him and I got along great, and he actually mentioned that it'd be good for me. He said, anything you want to do civilian side, you can do in the military. So I signed up.
And you're now in the artillery trade.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that. What is the most exciting thing about what you do as an artillery sergeant?
Yeah, so artillery, the guns, I think we're so crucial to the fight. We bring the big guns, and I'm happy to be a part of that and be on the front line. Right
on. So, Matthew, for yourself, you mentioned that your role in terms of loading candidates. So these are existing military members. Yes. Onto courses so that they can continue their training, and then making sure that the qualifications are in place once they complete training. It sounds like a pretty vital role in terms of making sure our folks are prepared and ready to do their job.
Oh, definitely. And that's a problem sometimes with, you'll see sometimes where you miss something that's supposed to be on your resume and it's not there. So it is vital that I know exactly who's where at what time, and that they've completed it, and I actually make sure it's entered properly. Because there's nothing to say you've done a course that it was strenuous. Now, if I forget to input it, it will not show that you're qualified to do that. So it's very important to do my job properly.
What would you say is the biggest challenge to getting troops loaded on courses in the first place?
Depending on the trade, sometimes it's the time and space of instructors, because in essence, a course has to have instructors to run. And being that we are the reservist, and most people are Class A, which means only working 1 day a week, for them to put a course on and then staff it, that I think is probably the hardest challenge in getting soldiers qualified.
Right on. So, our topic today is fighting spirit. Right, and I think that most people probably think of the military as, the fighting force and that sort of thing. But I think this idea, this concept, or as we call it, a professional expectation, can apply in many areas. So I'd like to talk to you about that. Jasmine, for you, you mentioned, the big guns and their artillery being key to the fight and all of that. When you think of this term, or this professional expectation, as we call it, fighting spirit, what does that mean to you?
For me, when I think of the fighting spirit, I think of, you come across adversity or hard things in life, and fighting spirit is like ready to tackle it, looking at it as if it's an opportunity, trying to have a more positive, opportunistic view and just not give up.
And Matthew, what about yourself? I know that you, outside of the military, are a bodybuilder, right? Is there, does this apply in other ways, even outside of your military career?
Oh, definitely. So I'll speak just on the bodybuilding piece, sticking to a plan and actually seeing it through. So that ties into the military where, as a basic soldier, you want to be, say for myself as an infantier, I want to be qualified infantry. So that will be hardships, whether it's stress, so lack of sleep, nutrition, make sure you get your meals in. With the Army, you're only going to get the 3. And as a competitor, I need six a day. So then how do I supplement that? So those challenges then become not only physical, but mental. So for that fighting spirit, you got to be able to push through. And that's something as a professional soldier in any trade, you have to be able to do.
Now, both of you are more senior people. You've been around for a few years, obviously. In what ways do you communicate or instill the fighting spirit in those soldiers who are coming up through the ranks, who are looking up to you as more senior leaders? Oh, Jasmine?
For sure, yeah. So for incoming or newer soldiers, I always want to reinforce the team. You're only as great as your weakest man. And so you're going to have naturally more aggressive, more people maybe embody the fighting spirit naturally. And then you just want them to be able to teach and share people who maybe aren't on the same page. And then for ourselves as leaders, we just have to set the example and keep up with it. And hopefully everything should go well.
Yeah, I definitely second what Jasmine said. Part of leadership is knowing your troops and promoting their welfare. And as seniors within the forces, not only do you have to be on the ground in front of the troops to show them that whatever you're asking them to do, you can do, but also administrating them. So that's a big thing I'm finding right now, being a sergeant major, is ensuring paperwork's up to date. Anything, like right now we're sending people out the door for operations, making sure they have their medicals. So I have to make sure I'm double checking those, because in essence, they're going to be doing the hard work on the ground. So let me make it easier for them by making sure they're properly kitted, all their administration is done.
And Matthew, what would you say, is maybe the biggest challenge that you face in getting people prepared for deployment? I mean, as the division enters into the committed phase now this year, like you said, there's hundreds of soldiers going out overseas, all different parts of the globe. Administratively, this is a huge task. What's maybe the one biggest thing that you see that you have to face in getting them ready and making sure they're prepared for overseas deployment?
Right. So the admin piece is what gets everyone. Being Class A is what gets everybody, because in essence, sometimes there's a quick flash to bang on when the brigade or the division needs returns. And like I said, for Class A, that person might not check their email, the military email anyway. And then we're trying to stay away from using civilian emails. So that's one. And also we had, like my unit, we've had 20-something people apply for private corporal position. But then their paperwork piece is what gets them. So yeah, I want to go. Okay, perfect, you're up. Oh, I forgot to do this, forgot to do that. Well, then you've just wasted a week, and returns that got to be in. So that's a hardship that it's hard to order them to make sure they're up to speed. Now, when you're with the Reg Force, obviously that's something they do daily. So all their paperwork's usually up to go, and they're ready to rock and roll.
Jasmine, going back to your role and working in the command suite with, again, directly with the Div Sergeant Major, as well as in the office there with the commander, Brigadier General Major. What do you see on a day-to-day basis are some of the challenges that folks in that suite at the highest level in the division, what are some of the things that you see that are challenging in terms of the command suite and making sure that all the things happen that are necessary for that level to keep running smoothly?
It's kind of difficult for me to answer because I don't see it exactly. I just I'm kind of like a fly on the wall and I don't know all the details. But we see like Warrant Officer McDonald's administrative issues. We see that coming across, and in the command cell, we're trying to decipher like how to break down these barriers and get soldiers where they need to be. So there's a lot of moving parts, and I don't have like an exact answer. But what I would say is that with all this administration, that is also, another obstacle that we're all fighting to overcome. So more than anything, I just would say that people need to go the extra mile for their troops and work with what we got and just, take note of where we need to improve and work towards the future.
So, just want to kind of look at a sort of a career perspective again. Both of you have been in for a few years now. Matthew, can you describe maybe a time where you had a challenging situation and how sort of, again, applying that fighting spirit or your way of managing the adversity, can you describe sort of how you pushed through and what that lesson taught you?
One of the hardest courses I ever did was my 3 Bravo, which is your infantry platoon warrants, your platoon 2IC course. It's physically challenging, mentally challenging. Anything that you thought was hard before, you've now run into it again. Weather was a big factor, and then your weight load that you have to carry. So I experienced a lot of challenges on that course. It's not to say you can't pass course or you don't know what it is. Specific to that course, you actually don't learn how to be a platoon 2IC. You learn how to command a platoon. As a warrant officer in the CAF, it's usually when we say it's OJT, on-job training. So from the time you've got in, you've learned, okay, make sure you're watching out for your soldiers. Make sure you eat last, let your soldiers eat first. So it builds you to that point. Now it's cumulative on that course where now you should know. So you're expected to just do the job. You may not be 100% at it, but you'll be successful. So my expectations for myself on the course was to not quit. And like I said, I was at the point where I was told I did fail a couple assessments, but I was never put on the PRB. My course director came to me personally and said, the reason you didn't go to PRB is because every time you failed, your retest was multiple times higher. So that means you're learning. I will say point blank, there was people that were on CANSOF, the regular force, that they had one kick and they said, no, they pull. Wow. So it's now in their defense, because the course is high probability for injuries, you got to understand if I'm a SOF operator, why get injured on a possibility course when I have an actual career that entails me to be physically fit 100% of the time. So that I understood. But then the issue lies is, could they have pushed through? Yes and no. I definitely know as the soft person could have, because he was a huge gentleman. But like I said, that risk, and you're going to get injured on that course. So that mental space you have to have. Say, look, it's for me. I said one and done. I just don't think I could have put myself through that again. Believe it or not, I don't know any Bruno Mars songs off by heart. There was this one rhythm that was going through my head, and we did the one day we measured a 33K through the bush. And that one song, which made me stop, I was okay, if I get that rhythm of the song, it'll be equals 100 meters. And I just kept doing that, and we hit it. So there's aspects that I've learned outside by being an athlete that you try to tap into and input it while you're in the military, because it's at the end of the day, you have to pass. You have to push through. You have to find that one spot that you've been to, and I've been in some dark places, go back in there and be comfortable.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, what about for yourself, Jasmine? I mean, I imagine that learning how to be, you know, an artillery specialist is like, there's got to be some challenges. I mean, you mentioned, you know, that there are applications to what we do in the military to the outside world, but artillery is a little bit different. So I imagine you didn't really have anything that sort of prepared you for what that job would be like. How did you manage to get into that trade and be successful to the level that you are now?
For sure, yeah. So going into artillery, like people know, it's the big guns, and at first you think, okay, you're just firing a gun, and then, you know, being in there in this job as a gunner, you realize we have the recce, we have the gun line, we have the command post, we have observers. There's a lot of different positions. So the thing that has got me through the hard tasks is looking at it like very pragmatically, like an overall view, like what is artillery there for? Like, okay, we're going to support the infantry. Like, how do we do that? Okay, we have these huge guns that are towed by trucks. Like, obviously, they can't just go anywhere. So you got the recce portion. They're going to go out first. They're going to look at the ground. Just simplify it all. And I always kind of think like, okay, yeah, how are we going to get, you know, the muzzle of this gun pointed to where we need? And so we got map and compass, and we got radios to communicate, and I always try to tie it back and make it kind of simple, and then each job goes more in detail. That's what works for me.
And clearly, you know, successful to this point in your career. Where do you see yourself in the next phase of your career? Where would you like to, you know, go from this point on?
Right, yeah, so I actually have a course coming up. It's going to be called the Gun Area Technical Supervisor #1. So I have 2 to 3 already. I didn't go in order, but that'll be my recce sergeant's portion. And hopefully with that, tied with Gun Area Technical Supervisor 2 and 3, I'll be fully qualified to man a command post overseas. So op reassurance in Latvia, hopefully.
All right. Sergeant Major and command team, are you listening?
Exactly.
All right, right on. And what about for you, Matthew?
I'm actually just finishing up my actually I did my last assessment just to get into Gagetown for my infantry sergeant major's course. So that's on the book. So now it's fully qual. And then from there, wherever the Army takes me, because once you hit warrant officer, you belong to the institution. So you're no longer just thinking about your unit. You got to think big picture now.
Right on. Well, I really appreciate both of you taking the time. I know you're both extremely busy in your respective roles, and so it's much appreciated, and I'm sure that folks listening have gotten a lot out of our conversation today. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of The Div, our series on professional expectations. I'm Lieutenant Navy Alex Wood. Please like, share, and follow us on social media, and we'll see you next time.